Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Tech Down Over. We are here with Curtis Judd, Jeff Blanchard, and we are going to be starting our show very, very soon. We've already gone through all of our audio and video, and there's a handsome lad in the middle right over there, and then there's Jeff and I on the sides. We're just kind of flanking him to make him look even better. So, so anyway, shall we start then? Okay, we're going to count down. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tech Down Over. I'm Rick Zanotti, and I'm joined today by my good friend and co-host, Jeff Blanchard. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Good, thank you, Rick, and I hope we're not being censored today with all the color patterns that you did yesterday. So.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. But, you know, YouTube has been censoring any and everybody with their quote-unquote whatever they think of. Of course, it's weird censorship, but we had a whole show with a color bar, which is funny because we don't even know how to generate a color bar with vMix. I don't think you can. So, yay censorship. We're in the land of the free. I love it. So, what can I say? Let's start our intro. And we are back. Whoa, somebody just joined us right there, right in the middle shot there. That, if you don't know who he is, you should. That's Curtis Judd. He is, he's an entrepreneur. He's a video guy, a light guy, an audio guy. He's got better gear than we do. So that he has risen in our esteem even more. So how you doing today, Curtis?
Great. That was a pretty flattering intro. Thanks for that.
You did good stuff. Oh no! After we heard in the
mixing stuff you've got.
Oh, we have a lot of stuff, but I don't have any preamp as good as yours. I'm going, man. Yeah, I've been thinking of getting like an Avalon, but I never thought of the one you got. I got to look into that. It sounds really good. Is that a tube amp?
It is. It's not a tube amp. No, it's all electron. It's all solid state. So, it's an interesting company. They're I think relatively new on the scene. I think the designer, and his name is escaping me right now, actually has a pretty long and extensive history. So he's been at some other places before.
Okay.
Probably the biggest reason I bought this one, it has way more inputs than I need. I think it's a 10 input, and I very rarely going to ever need anything like that. But the main thing that I really like about it is that it has some really, really top-notch converters. So the analog to digital and digital to analog are really, really nice on this. So it's kind of, for those that aren't familiar with it, I would say it's probably it's probably one of the competitors, kind of the smaller, sort of the underdog, I guess, relative to Universal Audio's Apollo interfaces. It's probably the best way to think of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. When people talk audio, most people don't realize how much you can spend in audio if you really want just beautiful sound. And it gets expensive. I think the most expensive piece of gear I have is the $1,000 Aphex, the 230, and the studio channel. Jeff has got both of them too, so we both have both of those. So I guess we almost match you. We've got $2,000 worth of studio channels, but you can't use them at once. So.
Well, I think the advantage with Curtis's one, I think you can, if something new comes out, you can get a software upgrade and put that in it. Is that correct?
Just like the Universal Apollo, it also has some digital signal processing built in. So it does. They're coming out with a lot of different emulators and things of that nature. So you can emulate different preamplifiers.
Oh, so you could really take that to whatever level you want. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun that way. The kind of the downside from my point of view is that you don't get the analog. There's some advantages to analog, I think, for example, at least on the kind of on the processing end. So, for example, with limiters and compressors, I think there are some advantages in some cases, especially for live work, having that in the analog stage as opposed to the digital stage, because a lot of times if you've got, if you weren't paying attention for whatever reason, you gain staged wrong, you're coming in a little too hot, there's no digital signal processing that can fix that. But analog can. Analog can catch some of that. So, they're kind of up and down sides to both of them.
Well, it's funny because if you look at like Mackie mixers, they have digital now, but they're still mostly, even the digital ones are really just digital interface, but they're analog.
Yeah.
And they're used in concerts more than really in studios, and they also said the same exact thing. They can control it better on stage, and get a better sound that if they had to go through converters where it may be messing up where you don't expect it to, because it could happen, especially if you're feeding a really hot sound into it or whatever else. In concert that could definitely happen, especially with guitars and stuff.
And there's no fixing that. I mean, once it's in the digital stage, once it hits that converter,
yep,
you're done.
I always tell people you don't want a clip to go, clip? What's clip? I go, clip is bad.
Yeah,
clip is when your WAV file looks like this.
Yeah.
And they go, is that why my WAV file looks like? That's why your WAV file looks like that. Yeah. And
one of the things I like with my Aphex is it's got the foot switch, the kill switch. So if I walk away, there's no sound because I've got to have my foot on the switch for the sound to come through. So I really enjoy that. So, and if I want to cough, I just take my foot off and make a noise, and that is quite an easy.
I've got to get one of those foot switches because we're dry out here. Well, it's just like Utah. We're dry out here, and your throat just gets dry no matter what you do. And you're in the middle of the show going, "Hi, I'm back." And it's just you can't get rid of the dryness usually, no matter how much water you drink or whatever. It's just there. Even though we did rain today, it's amazing.
Yeah, the arid, dry West. You're in the Wild West there, Rick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you're in the Wild, Wild West. It's
Southern
nice and
California.
dry.
We're high desert.
It's funny is having grown up there and then moving here. I think I now really know what dry is.
What is it? You're like 12-15% usually, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, is it drier up in Park City?
I think the altitude does a little something to it too. Yeah. I mean, we get the snow and stuff, but it always feels really dry. And the kind of the natural vegetation is sagebrush and grass, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So.
Curtis, I was saying on last week's show that I'm becoming a bit obsessed with stabilization in my videos, and I've noticed you've been doing a few gimbal reviews lately.
Indeed, stabilizers are a lot of fun. Now, so the one I did last week was a what's the name of the Zhiyun is the name of the company, Chinese company. They make here's the review here for the Smooth 2, which is a gimbal for smartphones. In this case, I was flying it's funny to say that, I guess, flying an iPhone 7 Plus. But the results on that surprised me. I didn't expect the quality that I was able to get in some of those shots. I was really, really impressed. And there was part of me that, again, I have this kind of weird obsession with analog gear. And for me, it's at the point when I was getting ready to purchase a Steadicam or a gimbal or something, I was actually looking at the the old style analog ones that analog,
like a glide cam or something.
Analog, I mean, like physics
Yep.
are what drive them. It's gravity that keeps them stable. And this one actually really surprised me. I was really pleased, really impressed. Actually, surprised.
Is that one a power one?
Yeah, so this one's powered. It's a little battery powered, and it's it can fit phones as large as an iPhone 7 Plus, so the bigger phones, and it does a surprisingly good job. There's still some technique, I think, to any of those, even the high end. You can go spend thousands of dollars on a movie or whatever, and you still have to have some technique. So there's still a learning curve. But I think in this one it was pretty easy. I mean, you hold it at a kind of a 45-degree angle to the ground. And it does a really nice job smoothing out any footsteps, and you can get some really cool-looking shots that look almost like crane shots. It helps when you're 6'6" to get crane shots, but they're an awful lot of fun. And I think we're at the point in the industry too where they've been making these for a few years now, and I think some of the early ones for the smaller cameras and for phones and stuff were a little bit on the rough side. They were kind of going cheap on the processors that have to control the motors and things of that nature. And I think at this point we're starting to see some really great ones. And this one runs $330 US.
Well, that's not bad.
It's not too bad. Not too bad at all.
No, I mean we have the Osmo, which is fun. Jeff has an Osmo too, and I'm actually surprised at how well they take shots. You have to be careful when you hook your phone on because the home phone could go sliding off sometimes. So it's just a little risky. But it's nice. It's amazing, and it is motorized, but it doesn't seem to eat up too much battery. I used to have the glide cam, the original physics glide cam. Wait, it is the hardest thing in the world. It was so hard to get that thing balanced where it actually followed you rather than kind of lag. It's an art just to get the exact counterweight perfect. And the minute you change cameras, oh, you're hosed. There we go again. And we actually sold it to somebody who wanted it, and we said, here, you can have it. That's fine. We just never really got it to work well.
There's definitely an art.
I've been looking also at the Pilot Fly, which is sort of the bigger version to the one used just doing cases, but for the sort of the DSLR for about the GH4 size. But that seems quite impressive. Like you were saying, the earlier ones didn't seem to do as good a job, but the H2 seems to do quite an excellent job. And exactly what you were saying, there's a technique to anything, but all I want is when I hold a video camera by hand steady, I still get movement. With those things, I don't get anything. But what really annoys me when I see a lot of people reviewing these, and you weren't one of them, they get them and then they just shake it this way and do all that. And I thought, well, it's still not going to do it. But I just hate that when they do it. And they all do it, especially the manufacturers, just balance and start shaking it. But, you run up and down, it's still going to do some move. But you just try nicely and you get really good shots. So I was really impressed with the shots you did from the iPhone 7 as well. But really good.
Well, Curtis, when he did those movements, did you notice how stable we kept him? His head never moved. It was perfect.
Did I freeze, did I?
It's advanced broadcast technology. It just keeps him perfectly rooted in place. It's great.
Brilliant job. Brilliant work. Yeah, they've really come a long way. And the prices, I think, at this point are pretty good. There's another one. Zhiyun actually contacted me. I guess they were pretty happy with that review, so they contacted me, and we've got another one coming that will support cameras, and it's like the Sony A7 series. They say up to a Panasonic GH4. We'll see. I've got one of those here, so excited to put that on there and see how it works. There's going to be a little bit more balancing work, I think, with that, because the one that's built for the phones, of course, it's pretty easy to keep it kind of in the right spot. It's a little bit idiot-proof, but the ones with the cameras, we'll see how that goes in terms of balancing.
Right, because then you've got a lot more weight on them. But they seem to be pretty well. We just sold our Ronin M, which we never used either. But I don't even know if we did a test. I don't think we even did a test on it really for very long. But it was one of those last year purchases, tax purchases, and we never really used it. We don't wind up doing a lot of shooting like that, so we went, oh well, what do we do? We'll sell it. But you just mentioned Sony and the A7. You shoot Sony too, right?
Jeff or me? I shoot.
I'm sorry, Curtis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mostly shoot Panasonic GH4.
Okay.
I do have a Nikon DSLR 750 that I shoot as well. That one, not quite as much. Although we have a shoot coming up next week that, we're talking with the director and the producer. They want to go with the Nikon instead of the Panasonic GH4.
It has really nice video, that 750.
It actually, it's surprisingly good.
It's nice. Good. Yeah, we sold ours. We had two of them, and we sold them. And I went with the Fujifilm X-T2.
Yeah.
They're interesting. I mean, I have some complaints about them, but on the whole, they're really pretty amazing cameras. I would say it almost has better video than the GH4, and we have a GH4 too. I think it's more consistent than the GH4, though the GH4 gives you better video options, if you know what I mean. You can do more with settings on the GH4, but the X-T2 focuses, and color. The color just blew me away. I think it's the best I think it's even better than Canon. And Canon's got good Fuji, color.
That's their background. I mean, they've been doing color science for a good long time, and I would expect them to do really well. That camera looked intriguing to me. I'll be honest. At this point, I'm probably at the point where I'm looking more at. I'd really like to see. This will sound funny to some people, but the Canon C100 Mark II is a pretty compelling camera. Do you? Okay.
I sent it back 3 days later.
But the thing is this. I think I'm waiting for the Mark III to see what it has. I think that could be a pretty compelling camera for the kind of work I do, for the corporate video, for a lot of the reviews and things of that nature. But, it's not for everybody, for sure.
No,
but the Fujis looked really intriguing to me.
They're not bad. They're not bad. And this is really, I would consider this first generation real decent video from them, because they really haven't had great video before, at least not 4K. And even their 1080 was okay, but it wasn't, their focusing was lousy.
Yep.
But now they've come out with this array focus system that I would say is as good or better than the dual pixel focus that Canon did. It's really, for fast shooting, it's amazing. Now you do have to do a little setup because there's 4 canned types of focus that you have, and then a custom one where you could create your own out of those 4. It is fast. If you're doing any kind of sports or any kind of moving, it'll do about I think about 14, 15 frames a second when you have the boost. You have to have the power grip. Unfortunately, you have no choice. So you have to have the power booster battery grip because that's how you open up the camera to 30 minutes of 4K and I think it's 14 or 15 frames a second. So that's what gives you the speed with that booster. Batteries aren't the longest life. Once you've had a GH4, you really get spoiled. Nobody's got a battery life longer than them that I've seen yet. But it does shoot nicely. Focus control is good. I find as long as I'm paying attention, I won't mess up the focus. But you've got to set 2 or 3 things always to get the focus right. And of course, I'm not paying attention sometimes, and I'll forget, oh, shoot, I should have put face detection on. Because it's a fast camera, and anything that comes out behind you, it may switch on you. So you have to have certain things preset, otherwise you may get slightly not expected results. The menu system is okay. I find it very hard to read. It's all uppercase. And I go, uppercase is a bit tough when it's small fonts and uppercase. I find that it should have been upper, lowercase. I think it would have just been easier for the eyes. But other than that, it's a nice camera. The lens is, okay, now here's one thing that really surprised me. Having had Nikons and Canons, Panasonics, I have never heard a lens as quiet as the Fujis. In fact, you don't hear them. That's why I keep, is it on? Is it actually, it's amazing. I don't know how they got it so quiet. Did they call it it's hyper or something? I'm not sure if it's a hyper motor, but it's a hypersonic motor probably, but extremely, extremely quiet.
And Rick, as well, with this saying about all the automatic things, with just going back to that gimbal, Curtis had been testing the Smooth 2. One of the features I really love with this, and you could pay a lot of money for it in other things, was the follow focus, or the follow. So you can have it on the stand and you can use it like a pan, tilt and zoom camera by yourself.
Interesting.
I was really impressed with that. Did you knew it had that at first, Curtis?
No, I didn't know that, and in fact, I was delighted by that feature, except, and this is one piece of feedback I did have for the company, Zhiyun. What it does is it composes you so that your face is in exactly the center of the frame. So, that's just fine if you're doing something really quick and dirty, but for if I was going to do a proper interview with it, I'd like to be able to say, hey, move the face up into this upper right-hand corner, rule of thirds or something, to be able to kind of offset it just a little bit. That was the only feedback I really had for them. I think if they could do something like that, that would be really impressive.
One thing you didn't hear you say on that. What was the sound quality? Because did you get sound from the phone? Did you get a lot of noise from the gimbal on the phone?
Yeah, no, the sound quality was great. So it's pretty much just like hand holding the phone. The motors are virtually silent as well. I didn't pick up any motor noise at all, which was impressive.
That's much better than the Ronin. And the
Osmo
noisy. Is noisy.
Not Ronin, the Osmo.
Osmo, yeah, it's noisy.
Yeah, none of that. It was impressive. It's very quiet.
Yeah, now the only time I notice that the Osmo's quiet is when you're right up on it. If you're talking or like doing a selfie mode, it's not too bad. Then it's not getting. But if you're doing anything where you're moving and you can hear the zzz, it's pretty noisy.
But even then, I don't mind too much. I always have, if I'm that bothered, I'll record the separate sound with my little Tascam recorder anyway, and won't be near the camera there. I was also pleased that I was having a look at one of your reviews of all the recording devices that you were testing. Yeah,
good job for you for recording your sound separate. I'm still a big advocate of that approach. There's so many advantages. It's more work. Yeah, can be a pain. So many of us are so focused on visuals that we lose sight of sound. Sound is an afterthought. And the reality is that, from my point of view, is that it seems like if you want to convey quality, if you want to convey production value, probably sound is, I would say probably more important than visuals, frankly.
Definitely.
Some people
I
will
agree.
disagree with
And
me
you know,
on
it's
that.
funny you say that because in most cases and in research that's been done, people will forgive crummy video, if you will. They will not forgive bad sound, P-pops, all that. It just irritates them. And that's one, or noise, or too much whatever. They don't like that. But video not too good. They don't care. But the minute the sound goes bad, you lost the audience.
Yeah.
But I enjoy when you do a video and you really work on the sound and people don't notice, and it's really good. Like
Yeah.
I did a video of me doing the Osmo, and you could hear me puffing and panting and running. But that wasn't me. I just put some sound tracks in, and when you got on there, and I've said I did all that post-processing, but going past a freeway and putting extra proper sound and fading in and out so it sounds like you're getting closer, and a bus went past, and that I put a proper bus noise in, and same with the train. But it really makes a difference, but people don't notice. But that's when it really makes you enjoy what you're doing with a bit of editing in that.
You missed your career in Hollywood.
I think so. I'd have loved to have done that. So.
It's amazing.
That's I think the definition of immersion, and I think you can do more for immersion of your piece and getting people into the story and losing. They're no longer conscious of the production itself, and they're lost in the story, and they're just absorbed, and that's really the goal, I think.
There's
and
also
those
another
things all
thing
help.
that you're very much fussy about, and I agree with you, and that's lighting.
Yeah.
And how important lighting is, whether you overlight or create shadows. Yeah, it's the art part of what we're doing. What kind of lights have you been reviewing lately that really catch your attention that you like?
Well, I can say this in general terms first, that the one I'm holding out for is the Aperture Lightstorm COB, but I want the daylight version. So I've reviewed the tungsten version. The daylight version will be a little bit more useful for me because I do have to mix with daylight quite often.
Okay.
So having the tungsten version and having to gel it just is, you lose a lot of power when you gel something like that, especially when you're going from tungsten to daylight. So the daylight version will be really nice. That is, for me, kind of one of the ultimate light instruments because you'll be able to, you can focus it, you can put it in a softbox, you can put barn doors on it, you can cut it, so it's really versatile. Right, you know, my kind of main workhorses for now are the Aperture Lightstorm LS1S, so the panels, LED panels, and those are great. They put out great light quality in terms of color. They put out lots of light. They're sturdy. They've held up really nicely. I've been using them a little over a year now. But you can't control them as well. They're just kind of, they're one of those things where you turn it on and the light goes everywhere.
It's strong. It's strong, and doesn't it have the blinders, the
barn doors?
Yeah, the barn doors.
It does, but interestingly, the panel, that doesn't, it's not a single light source, so it's multiple LEDs, so you can't really cut it. So when you close those barn doors, really all you're doing is attenuating the amount of light that comes out.
Okay, yeah.
But you're not getting a hard line. So, and that's okay, you know, for a lot of things. And again, to be honest, since I'm doing mainly interviews, for me, the most important thing is to be able to soften it. So I can shoot it through an umbrella and things like that, and it works just fine. I don't have to have that precise control all the time, but I'm looking forward to the day when I can get one of those, the Aperture COB.
What are they? They're like about $1,000 each?
No, they're actually even less than that. They're 600, I think.
600, that's not bad.
Not bad at all.
I've seen them, but I've held back.
great.
I didn't know if they were going to come out with a daylight version because I don't really want tungsten. I was the same way. I said, you know, we don't really do that much tungsten. I've got, right now in front of me, I've got the blenders from Lowell, and they do a really good job so you can kind of mix the tungsten and the daylight. But when you only have tungsten, it's like, now everything looks a little too warm. And now the lighting you've got on you right now looks really good. Skin tones, everything looks very natural.
Well, that's because it's natural light.
Is it really?
It's a window. It's one of these things called a window.
Damn, he's high tech.
Right. Well, and that's a point. That's a very interesting point because window lighting can be positively beautiful.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you look really
so
good the way you lit today. And I was going, I wonder if he's got, what kind of light he's using? Because it's very natural. The skin tone, everything just looks very natural. I didn't even think of the window. Duh.
You know, there's a lesson there for all of us.
I said that's the only site I don't like looking at is Aperture, because they seem to have so many things I want to buy, because they have quite a lot of things. But one of the other people I follow on YouTube is Anders Overgaard in Norway, and he uses a lot of their equipment, but I just love the way he uses them. Like, he used a bit like you were saying with the open window, but he had his light stuck outside the open window at night. And it gave such a good lighting source to make it look like daylight coming through the window rather than having it inside the room. And I thought, gee, some of those
and remember
techniques.
And remember what he did? He created moonlight out of the same kind of an inverse thing with the same light, but in a different angle, and it looked like moonlight. It was pretty cool.
And those are techniques that they've been using in Hollywood for a good long time. You know, of course, they've been using HMIs and other things like that, but shooting light through a window is just, it's so effective in so many ways for so many types of shooting. You know, because the interesting thing is that you have that window frame that essentially makes it a big softbox.
That's true.
You get that really smooth kind of look to it. It's just a really great look.
Yeah, it's kind of what you've got right now, because, again, I was wondering, is that real light? Or I figured it was a light, but, you know, it's funny. I just didn't think of daylight because it looks incredibly natural, and that's the look everybody's always trying to get, that natural look with lighting. So
So use natural lighting.
But the good thing these days, I suppose, it's all these products are sort of affordable for people to get into it without a big outlay, whereas before you used to have to spend thousands to get into it, but you can get for under $1,000 a decent lighting kit to start yourself off to see whether you like it or not. Like I did, I started just with like a 3-set fluorescent. That's all you need, but you just takes a lot more work to set it up nicely. But then if you use it, you go on to the next one.
Well, for years we were using the Kino Flows, and they were good. They had a nice light to them. You couldn't control it that well in terms of it was only one kind of light, really. It looked good. It wasn't bad. They tended to give a nice kind of general light, so it was more like a softbox kind of light. But then we started moving to the LEDs, which I just feel you have a tad, depending on the kind of LED, a little bit better control. But again, it depends on which LED lights. Like we have the ICANNs, the 500 ICANNs. They're okay, but they tend to be a little harsh. And even when you put the soft boxes around them, they're a little better, but they're a little harsh. I think we have one overhead as a hair light right here, and that's not too bad. But they're bright. And they were, I would consider them almost first generation LEDs about 6-7 years ago when we have light panels, the original ones that came out, and they just weigh like 5 pounds each. It's just, they're heavy for this small little, and you get about an hour of light out of them with the batteries that they give you, but they looked good for the time, but they don't have much throw. Those are really for like close up, 3, 4, 5 feet, and you're done. But they're nice if that's what you're looking at, like a museum type look. They're great for that.
Curtis, I was really impressed with that variable ND filter you was testing. Tell us more about that.
So the guys, what do they call it? Aurora Aperture is a company. It's actually just it's a guy out in California who is an engineer and he's a photographer. He had contacted me because coming from a photography background, he didn't really, he needed someone to look at it and to kind of review it a little bit more from a video point of view. And so he sent it over. And his big thing, his design objective really was, let's create a variable ND that's stronger than any other that are available on the market. And so his, you're supposed to be able to get about 10 stops, and it's pretty close to that. I'd say maybe between 8.5 and 9 stops, somewhere in there, which is more than most of them out on the market. And frankly, to be honest, most cases I'm going to be using, once I adjust it, I'd be looking at cutting at about 6 stops of light. So it worked really nicely. And the trick with those is that they're essentially 2 circular polarizers laid over top of each other, and you just twist them until you get to that, exactly how much attenuation you want. But that one was really nice. It didn't have the color cast issues that a lot of them have.
Oh, so you weren't getting like the little greens or kind of grays in the distance? No, that's nice, because I have the Tiffin, and they do a little bit of color casting.
Yeah, there was that, and then there's also the cross pattern that some of them pick up, and I didn't. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to reproduce that at all. So
that's good.
The pricing on it was pretty decent too. I remember several years ago, what was the company? Stingray, I think, is the company that made some of the first very, very popular variable ND filters, especially in the photography world. and they were beautiful, but they were expensive. I think it was, to get a 77 millimeter variable ND was somewhere in the $500 range.
I think you're right. Yeah, somewhere around there.
A little bit pricey. And so that was just a barrier for a lot of people. But these run, you can get a 77 millimeter for, I think, well under $200 US now. So they've come a long way. And
so they're competing kind of along the Tiffin line, which I think Tiffin's doing the same. I think I got them for about 77. I think I got for like 179.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good. I haven't tried the one you just mentioned, but I heard about it. So that's good to know too. Hey, changing subject a little bit, I'm curious if you guys have looked at this. Jeff's been wanting to get a Sony for a long time. I hate the little Sony cameras. I'm big. I have big hands, and I go, it looks uncomfortable. I go to Best Buy all the time, and I hit the A7R2, the A7S2, and I go, no, I just can't do this. It's like cramps. It's not good. But I have my eye, Jeff, I haven't told you this, but I have my eye on a Sony. It's a new.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Rick.
Don't do it. Well, this is the A99. That new.
No, that's a bigger one.
It looks interesting. It's $3,100. It's a full frame. It's got the same sensor as the A7R2, 42, 43 megapixel. It looks beautiful, but it's not totally mirrorless. It's got a translucent mirror, and I think it's fixed. It doesn't move, and then it sends some light to a different, probably prism or something. It looks just interesting. 15 frames a second on video, which is fast. Not video, but on photography, which is pretty darn fast. Shoots 4K, no heating issues. It looks interesting. That's the first Sony I've looked at in a long time saying, that's nice. Fast focus. Everything I've seen so far looks really kind of exciting. Have you guys looked at that one at all, Curtis?
No, I haven't. But that reminds me. I did have a friend who had, I think they call them pellicle mirrors, right? The translucent mirrors.
Yeah.
And Sony kind of, from my recollection, kind of led the way in that. And I had a friend who had one of those early on.
That was probably the A77, I think.
It could have been. It's been a number of years now. I've forgotten now, but I got a chance to look through the viewfinder, and I was like, ooh, this is not a very nice viewfinder.
Oh, it wasn't, really?
and maybe it's changed since then. So I don't know. I was going to ask you, Rick, have you had a chance to look through?
No, it is an EVF, though. So they did change it.
Okay.
Now, it's not optical anymore. It's an EVF. Okay. And they said the EVF actually had really good, it's bright, big, and showed you everything that was going on. So now there's one interesting quirk. In focus mode, in your autofocus mode, you can only do it in P mode. Oh. And they asked one of the product managers at Sony, why did you not allow in manual mode? And he says, we don't want bad photographers making the camera look bad. I think he was kidding, but you never know. It was hilarious because that's why they go to P mode. He goes, you can only screw yourself up so much, and everything else is going to work pretty well on the camera. But that's an interesting approach. But the camera, from what I've seen, I've only seen the YouTube looks at it. It's not out yet. It'll be out, I think, November 30th. It just looks nice. It looks like, now that looks like a camera you can kind of get your hands into. It's DSLR type size. Quasi-mirrorless, quasi-mirrored, so it's got some combination. They call it definitely a hybrid camera, but it has a lot of nice features and functionality, not to mention what looks like beautiful 422 HDMI out through, that's HDMI out. I'm not sure what they capture internal. Surprisingly enough, 2 SD cards. SDXC, I'm sure, but they didn't go with anything faster like QXD, which is funny. They didn't go with anything faster, but you know well, like a GH4 can shoot quite a bit of video forever with little SD cards.
Well, that's when I'm waiting for the GH5, and one of the reasons I am is, like you said before, is the Panasonic. I've got the FZ1000, seems to just go forever on batteries, so I'm hoping that the GH5 upgrade to that will go forever. Where the Sony, like they say, they seem to run out within about 10 minutes each battery.
Yeah,
but with the Panasonic, one battery does me hours for that, and you can do quite a lot on it. So take a couple of batteries with you, and you've got quite a lot of filming in that. And with the things that it says it's got, hopefully it will be as good as the GH4.
Boy, that that's. I agree with that. I'd like to see what the GH5 has. There are just a couple things. I haven't found my perfect camera yet. I do also, incidentally, I didn't get to this before. I do have a Sony Alpha 6000, so it's one of the older Sonys. And yeah, I love the small size because it's just convenient, but it's difficult to work. Again, I have big hands as well. And frankly, I find that the screen is a little bit on the small side, and it's hard to.
It's only 3, right?
I don't know, but now that I'm north of 40, that's that's a hard screen to work with. And the menus were just a nightmare. I thought they're just so complicated.
There's too many of them, right?
Yeah, it's just too many of them, and it's they could improve that. And in fact, I understand that actually a firmware update for some of the 7 series have actually maybe addressed some of that.
But they said it's still just as confusing. It's just less confusion. So I'm not sure it's good or bad.
More organized confusion.
Yeah. A lot of people are saying, okay, maybe it's better, but it's still pretty confusing. So maybe it's a little better, a little less going down into the levels. Even the Panasonic GH4, which I think has fairly good menus, does go quite a bit deep sometimes.
It does, but it seems, for reasons I cannot explain logically, it never has felt as intimidating as the Sony menus.
It feels kind of intuitive. It feels fairly intuitive.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I can say, and this will be interesting. So, Rick, I hope that you find yourself in a situation where you have to make a end of year tax purchase, and that you get the A99. The thing that I've struggled with the Sonys up until now, and it seems like it's getting better with each new generation of the Alpha series. The color has never inspired me. I've never been that impressed with the color. The A6000, for example. Sometimes it's fine, and then other times it's like, what happened? How did it all just fall apart and suddenly look all artificial?
Yeah, you're right. That's something. I had their bridge camera. I think it was the RX Mark II. I think RX 10.
10, I think it was.
And it was nice, but the colors never really looked like what you were taking.
Mm-hmm.
When you looked at it later, it just seemed a little harsher, a little too sharp. They really sharpen things too, but it looks artificially sharp. It's like they really put a noise cleaner on it or something, and you just go, that's not what I took. It looks okay. Some of the stuff was good. And I agree with you. Some of the stuff looks really good, and some all of a sudden looks like, oh my gosh, what happened? I could have swore that was no. So it's a little inconsistent. You're right. There's really no perfect camera.
What's interesting that Sony's doing is that reading the full sensor and downsampling. That is a brilliant
and that's
strategy
what they're doing.
Overall.
And that's what they're doing on the A99 too. It's a 42, 43 megapixel sensor. When you shoot when you shoot 4K, you get the full sensor.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. And they said the quality when it downsamples is just beautiful.
Yeah, and that's in fact that's what I know you're not a big fan of this camera, but I do like the color and I do like the picture, and it's only HD. But that C100 Mark II does that exact same thing. So it's got an 8 megapixel sensor, and it's actually reading the full 4K and downsampling and just recording to HD. And
I had a particular reason why I didn't like the camera. Just to be fair to the camera, I had the hell of a time seeing through it. It's all gray. I have bad eyes, and I've got an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which effectively gets you on low contrast. So I need higher contrast, and when you're looking at a C100, it's as flat as could be. And so I was going, oh no, I can't see through this thing. and I mean, looking at the menus, I was going, oh gosh, I can barely make the menus out. And then when you shoot and get it, it's totally gray. You have to color grade everything. There are no other modes other than what is it, V-Log or whatever that you C-Log, I forgot what it's called. That's it. That's all you have. And so everything requires grading. If you're good with that, then it's beautiful. So I had particular reasons. I love the look of the camera, the feel of it. It felt good. The lenses were nice. It just got me that I couldn't use it.
Yeah, and that's a killer. I mean, if you can't, and that's the thing with even the new Sonys. For me, the 7 series, I think I'd have a tough time. Yeah, I have to try at some point again, but the A6000 series and 6300 and 6500 now, they're just better. Too small.
Oh, they're too small too?
I think so. And they still have that recording button in the silliest location I've ever seen. It's hard. You're in a dark theater and you're filming. Good luck. You got to feel around for that thing.
That's true. Yeah.
hopefully hit it.
I can never understand why they have to have such a small body, because most people put a decent sized lens on it. So there goes your nice small compact size. So what's the point? That's where the Panasonic I like a little bit. They're just that little bit big and nice to hold, but not huge either. The nice little light, and that's I've got, as I said, the FZ1000, the bridge camera. But that was my tipping my foot in the water to see whether I like the Panasonic. But definitely do. So I'm keenly waiting for that GH5.
Yeah. Now, Curtis, have you seen the new Metabones? What is it? .467 or 764? I forgot what it's called. I have one of those. I got that for the GH4. I'm putting on my Canon lenses. It is amazing. The GH4 is looking like a full-frame camera. Almost. I mean, it's not far from it. The textures and everything are just gorgeous with that Metabones. Somebody said they do magic. I really think they do. It's just really so clean. But that's the latest one, not the previous ones. They didn't work as well. But the new one is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, and I've got one of the older ones, and I will be honest, I haven't pulled that thing out for a solid year because I just wasn't really thrilled with the look I was getting out of it. Right. So I think the new ones are definitely worth a look. I'm assuming the difference is primarily just they've done something to the optics that have just really improved. They
have, and so now you're getting less crop, and with Canon it just looks wow. I the first time I used it, I took a look at what I took a shot of and went, this is the GH4? I have a 5DSR, which is the 50 megapixel Canon. It's not bad. I almost sold it and I went, no, I'm going to keep it. It really takes pretty good detail. And I compared it a lot to the Fuji X-T2 and the Panasonic GH4 with the new Metabones. They're not far. They're really starting to have that look like a 5DSR, even some of the Nikons, where you're getting just much more detail than you normally would get. And you just go, it's amazing what they did with the light magic, with the physics. It's really, really clean. And it was like, I think it was $500, something like that. And $550, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And I see there's another bit of equipment I saw onto a GH4 was like an aperture thing, that the focus ring. Have you seen that? There's a remote handle thing you put on your tripod so you can pull your focus from that. Yeah, have you seen that one, Curtis?
Yeah, so I actually at NAB last year, I went up to the Aperture booth and we did a number of things. They call that the DEC Regain, and
yes, that's right. That's what.
Yep, and it's essentially like a Metabones. And I'm losing my lighting here. Can you see that?
Yeah, but it's kind of a cool effect now. It's like you just went into a movie theater. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But in addition to not only adapting your lenses, your Canon EF lenses, it's also it has a remote focusing mechanism, and you can control the aperture and everything. It's really pretty cool. It's really a neat thing, and it looks like, just from the on the floor testing that I saw there, in terms of sharpness, it looked really good too.
That's great. Well, Curtis, we are almost at the end of. I think we've been going for about 45 minutes, and it goes fast. Always a pleasure having you on. We got to have you back on again if you agree, but. It's fun to kind of geek out a little bit and talk about all the things. And I always watch your reviews and stuff, so it's always a pleasure seeing what you're up to and what. And you can always tell when people review what they like, and like you said, lighting and sound and especially sound. Nobody's really doing sound reviews anymore. So you're one of the few out there actually doing some pretty cool sound reviews.
Shh! Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody.
Before we let him go, Rick, talk about his learning light and sound course. You've got a sound course out, haven't you?
I do. I've got a couple now. So I have one that's on production sound, which means the process of recording sound for film and video, and kind of walks through. It's probably about 5 to 6 hours of material. And we walk through, the gear. We talk about how to set up your recorder. We talk about the techniques, mic placement, all the different types of things that you need to know to really kind of step up your sound quality. And then we just had a new course that we launched a couple of months ago that's on sound for video post-processing, so especially for dialogue. So how to post-process your dialogue audio, and doing that specifically in Audition. So that's going really well. We've had a lot of enthusiastic students join the school and been learning a lot, and it's been a really great experience.
Well, that's great, and it's interesting because most people who do audio don't really have a clue where to set levels to. More often than not, everybody sets it to about -9, -10, and we keep saying, for voice, get it up to -6 at least. We may be peaking up to -3, but bring it down after that. And you hear good audio, and it sounds loud on people's speakers, but it isn't. It's just well managed, and a lot of people just have it so low, -12, and you just go, can't hear it. And the voice just fades away into it, and that's what I love when you're teaching things that just get people understanding audio a little bit better, because a lot don't. And they know video, but they just kind of leave audio kind of, well, yeah, my mic records. What else do I care about?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're busy. That's a trick with being a solo shooter, is that you only have so many hands and you've got one brain. So it's tough to keep up on all of it. But if you get a couple of fundamentals down, you can make a big, big difference. And again, like we talked about before, having that audio sound good is going to do a whole lot more for your perceived production value than, dropping another $3,000 on a new camera body.
Right.
So
that's so true. That's so true. And none of the camera bodies, for the most part, have any good audio.
Nope.
For the most part. I mean, the preamps just aren't that good.
Exactly.
Oh, you know what? Speaking of that, the A99, I think, has an XLR input. I think.
Really?
I thought I read that somewhere. I was going, really? In a camera? Wow. That's a new one. On a DSLR? I don't think anybody has that.
Well, I'll have to check it out now. Now you've got me intrigued.
Now I get you interested. Yeah, I was looking at that going, really? I haven't seen anybody talk about that yet, which, again, nobody's interested in audio. They don't get it. But I just saw that one of the podcasts briefly said XLR. No, XLR audio on a DSLR? Ooh.
Wow.
I think Tony Northrup does a good review on it. I think he did a lot of the releases from that. He did a good review on it.
Yeah, he does fun stuff.
I like all of his
look
work.
at that.
Well, Curtis, again, a pleasure having you on. How can people get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you?
Let's see. Best place is probably to go to YouTube and just do a search for Curtis Judd. You'll come to my channel. That's probably the best place to hook up first. And then also my website is learnlightandsound.com. Love to see you over there.
That sounds great. Well, Curtis, a pleasure. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. And Jeff, we'll see you next time, too. Have a good one.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jeff. See you later.